What's up, guys? I'm LQ. This is the LQ Review. Thank you so much for joining me here at my YouTube channel. This is where I talk about all the geeky, nerdy stuff that I love to talk about. Movies, video games, comic books, TV shows, all that good stuff. And right now I'm going to talk about the new DC animated film, Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 1. And for me, this is definitely a tale of two stories for me. First of all, I have not been a huge fan of the Tomorrowverse. It's the current continuity of DC animated films. I haven't been a huge fan of it. I enjoyed the previous universe a lot more than I enjoy this one. The Tomorrowverse it's been a couple good movies in there, but for the most part, they've all been misses. I especially hated Justice League Warworld. Don't even get me started on that. I didn't really have high hopes going into this. Knowing that they were going to film 3 movies, so it was going to be a trilogy, Crisis on Infinite Earths, though, I was excited. I was cautiously optimistic. So, how is this a tale of two stories for me? Well, number one is the negative side. And I watch this and I'm like, why can't they just adapt Crisis on Infinite Earths, the comic book? Why can't they just do an adaptation of it? A straight adaptation. The storyboards are already written out in the comic book. Do an adaptation of that. I don't care if it fits into a universe. I want an adaptation of the source material that I love. That is one of the downsides of trying to adapt stories in stories that we all know and love from the comics, of trying to adapt these stories in a connected universe. Because you have to make them work in the universe that you've established. And that's why I'm such a big proponent. Yeah, I love connected universes. Don't get me wrong. But I'm also a huge proponent of doing standalone films. And standalone films that can be a more direct adaptation of the story they're adapting. And Crisis on Infinite Earths is ripe to be adapted in a straight adaptation. And I don't understand why they couldn't have just gone there. Done the adaptation. Use the comic as the storyboards, adapt it, and give us something that feels like home, right? Feels like, oh man, they got it right. This is exactly what I remember. That frustrates me. And again, I think that's a real downside of adapting well-known stories into existing universes. But, and I'm saying this as someone who hasn't liked the Tomorrowverse, this was pretty good. This was pretty good. Now, would I have rather gotten a direct adaptation of Crisis on Infinite Earths? You betcha. Absolutely, 100 times over. I'd have rather gotten the direct adaptation. But I'm going to do what I always do, and I'm going to take the movie, the TV show, whatever the case may be, I'm going to take it, and I'm going to try to let all preconceived notions aside, try to let go of any biases that I have, and simply evaluate the content on its own merits. And on its own merits, this was pretty good. It doesn't really look much like the source material, but it was pretty good. It was a very Flash-centric movie, which, you know, DC Animation has done quite a few Flash-centric movies lately. But again, this was done well. This definitely used Flash's abilities in a way that allowed him to save the day, so to speak. Even though the movie's not over. This is just part 1 of 3. I'm a huge fan of the Crime Syndicate. Huge. I love the Crime Syndicate. Actually, one of my top 5 DC comic storylines of all time is Forever Evil. Guys, if you've never read Forever Evil, check it out. Don't worry about the Blight storyline. Let go of the Blight storyline and just read the main Forever Evil storyline. I believe it's the best Crime Syndicate story ever written. But I love the Crime Syndicate pretty much in all their forms. And we've seen them on screen before. You know, we've seen them in animation before. But this one definitely caught the spirit of who the Crime Syndicate are. There was a scene in this movie where a building was falling. and Ultraman stops the building from falling, and he starts riding it vertical again. And for a second there, you're like, is he saving these people? And you're like, that's not Ultraman. Ultraman doesn't save these people. And then right before he did it, it dawned on me what he was doing. He was just pushing the building the other way, so it didn't land on their headquarters. A very Ultraman thing to do. Um, yeah, the Crime Syndicate played a big role in this. Johnny Quick was probably the Crime Syndicate member who had the biggest role, which that tracks because this is a very Flash-centric story. There was a lot of jumping around in different universes and different time periods in this film, and I would have liked. It was confusing at first until I caught up with it. Once I caught up with it and understood where each timeline or each universe, each kind of story was taking place in, it made sense. But I would have liked to have, when they made transitions, I would have liked them to say, you know, Earth 1, Earth 2, something like that. And that didn't always happen. But that's a nitpick because it was something that you kind of caught on to. Most of these characters are well written and they are faithful adaptations of the characters that you know and love. Love seeing Ted Kord's Blue Beetle having a fairly prominent role, prominent-ish. Yeah, this was pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, this is pretty good. I love how they set it up to where it's gonna go next. We're still at a point in the story where we haven't even seen the Anti-Monitor yet. Right now, the Monitor gathered the heroes to try to stop this energy wave from wiping out realities. They were briefly successful, and then another hitch comes into the plans, and the story ended. The part 1 ended. So we haven't really seen the Anti-Monitor yet. I assume we'll get the Anti-Monitor in part 2 because he is such a big part of Crisis. But what I'm kind of hoping for is, being animation, this has potential to wrap in other continuities that we love. How great would it be to see the Timverse Batman from Batman the Animated Series join this crew? How cool would it be to see some of the gang from Superpowers, from the Superpowers TV show, join this crew? I mean, we have a rich history of DC animation that they could pull from to tell a cool story. I'm kind of hoping that they do that. Now, again, that's not going to be a faithful adaptation of the comic, but that ship has sailed. That ship has sailed. This is not a faithful adaptation of the comic. So if you're not going to do a faithful adaptation of the comic, it'd be cool to get some fan service in there. So yeah, after part 1, I'm pretty excited to watch part 2. I was not expecting much from this, and what I got exceeded my expectations by a pretty great measure. And I'm very much looking forward to part 2. So in a thumbs up, thumbs down world, I give this movie a thumbs up. I thought it was pretty good. I would have rather gotten a direct adaptation, but we didn't get that. And in the world where we're getting a Tomorrowverse version of Crisis, this wasn't bad. And quite frankly, that's pretty high praise in the Tomorrowverse because I haven't really enjoyed most of the movies in the Tomorrowverse. So yeah, that's my take on it. Guys, I assume if you're watching this video, there's a good chance you've seen Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 1. Let me know what you thought of it in the comments below. I'd love to have a conversation with you about it. And yeah, thank you for being here and for joining me here at the OK Review. You know, I live in a world where I don't have a lot of people to talk to about this kind of stuff. That's why I started this channel. And my channel is slowly growing because I think this is a community that enjoys engaging in dialogue. Even with a 40-something bald guy like me, it's nice that we all get to have a voice and engage in dialogue about the stuff that we love. Whether we enjoyed the particular content or not, that's fine. We're all on the same team because we're all fans of the same stuff. So feel free to leave a comment, subscribe to my channel, and until next time, we'll see you guys later.